keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch the scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio Show. Once again with your host Nick Bernabe here on ucy.tv and the antimedia.org/radio. Really happy to be back alive and well on this Monday, November 13th, 2017. Yeah, we're back. We're surviving in these ridiculous political times, and just trying to get these fucking politics out of our lives, right? I mean, that's kind of like the new mantra for the activist movement, at least the one that I'm identifying with at this point, is not political activism to the point of, hey, I want my politics because my politics are better than everybody else's. I think I know more. I think I'm smarter than everyone, or more, more ethical or more moral than everybody else. And I want to impose my beliefs on other people. No. I think the new political movement, and the one that I throw my weight behind, is the political movement of saying, you know what, fuck your politics, keep them to yourself, don't bother me with them, I won't bother you with mine, have a good day, thank you, goodbye. That's me at the moment. Anyway, we're going to break down some just this ridiculous stuff going on with this douchebag out of Alabama by the name of Roy Moore, and we're going to talk about him, just stupid excuses being made, and the idiots having I mean, this whole thing is like a satire at this point. People are out there smashing their coffee machines because advertisers don't want to advertise on a guy's show who defends people running for the Senate for having relationships with young girls. Yeah, that's just, we're at the pinnacle of political discourse and philosophy, apparently. I mean, human beings were supposed to, we're supposedly like advancing, right? We're like, oh yeah, we're evolving, and we've got these great technological advances, and we've got these philosophers, and our philosophy is always advancing and stuff, except it's not, right? Our political philosophy right now is people out there smashing up coffee machines because, I mean, if this shit is not like comical to you at this point, I feel bad, because if you're really pulling your hair out over this stuff, it's I think we have to get to this point now where we got to stop taking it so seriously, because it's just become just so utterly ridiculous and nonsensical and what's the word? Bass-ackwards. This whole thing is so bass-ackwards at this point that it's like, okay, there's definitely no salvaging this political system. It's gone so far. It's become such a big joke that I really don't see any saving it. And I think the more realistic outlook would be, the phoenix rising, rising and falling. Right now, we're definitely seeing that phoenix on fire, and soon we'll have an age of rejuvenation. But right now, we just got to deal with, letting this thing all burn down a little bit, and let the fire burn down, clear some way out, so we could have some green growth, some new ideas. So maybe some philosophers start rearing their heads and treading water and getting above the fray, because right now, there are some good philosophers out there, and some of them are very close to us. We got Derek Brose, who actually works with us at the Anti-Media, who is probably one of the premier philosophers out there right now, spreading good ideas that are actually constructive, that actually can help us build on something, help us advance our ways in a whole new route, other than just this traditional, pro-capitalist or pro-socialist, Republican form of government, and economics, neoliberalism, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, we're in need of a third way, and people like Derek are out there making headway, spreading these ideas throughout the country. But the fact of the matter is that we still have this major power structure in place, which is, from my perspective, currently on fire. And I think we need to fan the flames a little and let this thing burn down a bit, and so that we can finally realize just how bad these ideas have been and how bad they are. And maybe we can have some little bit of a shift in consciousness and shift in opinion, and we can start advocating new radical ideas of governance that are outside of the current, paradigm, I guess. I don't want to throw too many buzzwords out there, but yeah. Anyway, let's get this show started. Right now, I've got my awesome longtime co-host, DB Schwartz. What's up, dude? How you doing, man?
All right, Nick. How are you?
DB Schwazy in the house. Let me turn my volume up. I can hear you very well. Okay. Also joining us tonight is our awesome journalist and special co-host, Jake Anderson. What's up, Jake?
Hey, I'm not much up with me. Just kind of digging into and being amused by the new WikiLeaks revelations, whatever people want to make of that, and listening to Barrett Brown's diatribe. And it's interesting with Barrett Brown, and I've interviewed him and wrote an article about him, and it with the various hacktivist groups and quote unquote truther groups, and I'm not sure Barrett Brown would like to be called a truther, but there's so much infighting now, even among the so-called resistance, and reappropriation of the word resistance, with even Hillary Clinton saying she's a part of the resistance. There certainly is no unified front against corruption, and the very thought of that is almost laughable right now. It's really hard for me to see how we're going to effect change when it's so difficult to even get people on the same side to be on the same side.
Yeah, it's an interesting observation. And, Jake, we've talked about this plenty of times in the past about a left, radical right alliance that comes together to confront, corruption and stuff like that. Now it seems like, and, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it seems like both of these sides are more inclined to just defend their own corruption and pin almost any problem on the other end of the spectrum, and kind of make excuses for their own people that are, causing problems, doing corrupt things, or in the instance of this radical, crazy lunatic conservative dude, Roy Moore, coming out of Alabama, and the revelations coming out that he's been, dating 14-year-old girls, and, he's accused of sexually assaulting a 16-year-old girl at this point, who just came out today.
Yeah.
and people in his corner are like making excuses for him at this point. It's ridiculous. And
well, beyond just making excuses, they're actually using it as an excuse to raise money. They're now fundraising with the phrase that they're fighting a spiritual war against the Obama-Clinton machine, as if allegations by women saying that he assaulted or harassed them as teenagers it has anything to do with Obama or Clinton or anything to do with a spiritual war. To be, again, it's people reappropriating terms to defend themselves, and it's just so pathetic, and people are so sick of it. And it's funny to me that I think he's going to go down. I can't see any way he becomes senator. But it's just funny to me that people will use any excuse to invoke the Obama-Clinton machine.
yeah,
Which really has very little to do with a lot of what's going on right now.
Jake, I want to agree with you on that last point as far as as far as you thinking he's not going to win, but I also thought the same thing when the whole Trump thing came out, where it's the whole grab him by the pussy thing. I was like, oh, that's it, Trump's done. Like I was like, yep, he's totally finished.
Those are words. Roy Moore those are actions on his part.
That was also taken out of context, so it's getting kind of old to just kind of rehash that,
It's not out of. I mean, it's.
Of course it is. Of course it is, dude. It's out of context. He's not saying I'm gonna do it. He's saying I can get away with it. So
yeah,
dude, it's all a big show, man. These are all actors. So we get all worked up about these actors, and they're getting their strings pulled. So
I agree with you, but in Trump's statement, he says, "I don't even ask anymore. I just walk up."
I understand that. You gotta watch the entire clip unedited. Just do yourself a favor.
Is the whole clip going to recontextualize him saying, "I just walk up and grab them"? I mean, that's
because he's gonna say, for example, I can, and then that's what I'm trying to tell you. He's trying to say it conceptually, but
for example,
it is what it is, man. It's a lot different than a lot of these baby rapers, so I guess we can say that.
Yeah,
right. But we don't. And when we have evidence of the baby rapers, we'll discuss that. But until then, we're talking about the evidence we do have.
We do have evidence. Moore is a piece of shit too. Now with the second or the fifth lady coming out, and that's the thing, man. You can make it partisan if you want, but the swamp is every fucking guy in there is a piece of crap, dude, and they have dirt on them. And I would say at least half of them, the blackmailings is going to be pedo, and they're just going to have to clean them out, unfortunately, for everybody, because it's going to break Americans' confidence in government, if there's any left.
Yeah, the very little bit left is quickly eroding. Here's what I find very, very interesting, and I guess this is done very often in the South. See, I was never very versed in Southern politics. But I just got done spending some time out in Birmingham with S.M. Gibson, and we were talking a little bit about this guy because he's been in the race for a good long time. These revelations only came out, the new revelations anyway, only started coming out like in the past week or two, right? But it's been known a lot of the stuff, and let me just go over some of the stuff first before these other revelations came out. So Roy Moore thinks Sharia law is basically taking over the United States. He thinks that certain communities already have Sharia law where basically law enforcement aren't allowed in. He believes Indiana and Illinois both are under Sharia law, at least according to some statements that he's made. He's very, very much anti-Muslim. He's very, very much in favor of Christian government. He thinks that the church should be very involved, or that at the very least the government should be run in a Christian way. He, quote, believes gays are an inherent evil against which children must be protected. He was suspended from a judge. He was a judge in Alabama. He was suspended because he refused to enforce the Supreme Court ruling that gay people could be married. He even argued that the government should seize the children of gay people and send the parents to prison. Okay, now this is all stuff that he said before these recent allegations came about. Now, knowing all this, keep in mind that this dude was also endorsed by Rand Paul, who we've talked about Rand Paul in this program a lot of times. He's one of the more moderate, logical people up there in the Senate who actually don't always have the worst intentions in mind. I mean, these guys actually sometimes defend our rights and stuff like that. Rand Paul endorsed this guy. Now, of course, he's probably regretting it now, but now we're seeing these accusations that this guy was dating very young girls, that he sexually assaulted a 16-year-old. She gave a very compelling press conference earlier today, which I watched in its entirety. It seemed pretty authentic. It's very believable. Here's the point I want to get to, though. I didn't realize this about, I guess it's a Southern politics thing, but they've heavily invoked the religion to defend this guy. So the first hit came from the Alabama state auditor, who basically compared this guy hooking up with teenagers to Joseph and Mary, who later became the parents of Jesus. So this guy is basically saying, well, basically what Roy Moore was doing was similar to what they do in the Bible, and Jesus, blah, 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 blah. And the dude's brother, Jerry Moore, said that that Roy Moore is going through something similar to the persecution of Jesus Christ. And then following the allegations, the sex allegations, evangelical voters are now more likely to support the guy. And it goes on. 53 pastors from Alabama signed a letter today, released it, urging people from Alabama to support Roy Moore. This is what blows my mind, because I guess being in California and stuff, I don't know, we don't see this as often, where religion is invoked in politics and stuff like that. This blows my mind. I didn't know people still down in the South kind of went by this kind of stuff, where it's like, oh yeah, your pastor tells you to vote for a guy, so just ignore the fact that he was hooking up with 14-year-olds, and ignore the fact that he is accused of sexually assaulting a 16-year-old. In her press conference today, like I said, very, very compelling. She even has the damn yearbook the guy signed while she worked at the restaurant where she said all this stuff happened. I mean, very compelling press conference. This blows my mind, dude. And I guess because I've always been out here in California, it's more of a dry kind of political argumentation thing. I didn't know that in the South they still kind of did this whole fling the Bible thing at you. I guess that's why they call it the Bible Belt. And I know that it's very religious and the evangelicals carry a lot of weight down there politically and stuff. But I didn't know it was like this. It surprised me. I didn't, and not much surprised me nowadays with, all this ridiculous nonsense going on and the vulgarity of the unprofessionalness of the government at this point. This actually caught me off guard. And Jake, I wanted to ask you about this because I know you got some roots down in, what is it, Arkansas?
Yeah, Little Rock, Arkansas.
Yeah, Little Rock. I'm guessing you've kind of witnessed this stuff before. I mean, can you give us any insight into just maybe a lot of our listeners probably don't live in the South, so we probably don't really understand this dynamic. Are you familiar with this at all and how this stuff is done? It really got me messed up, dude.
Yeah, it's complicated, I guess, to an extent. I mean, first of all, there's kind of these alternate universes where in the South where Alabama is much different than Arkansas, and both are much different than Texas, and Mississippi. Each state has its own weird kind of ethos, But I mean, certainly when you're talking about the religious right, they're a huge, powerful force in American politics, and I don't want to just cast aspersions on an entire religion or even religion itself. But in general, I would say I think people who are evangelicals are probably less likely to do a lot of independent fact-checking. Maybe that's a huge assumption to make, but it's one I'm making nonetheless. And, having grown up in the South, 18 years I spent, they're also, they're similar to and different from the left. They're similar in that they both want to chalk up anything that goes against their outlook as a left-wing smear. And the left does that too. The left talks about this is a right-wing smear. I'm almost calling it schmear.
You trying to make bagels real quick or what?
Yeah, I have some salmon schmear I'm going to put on the bagel. But
that sounds really good right now.
It's pretty difficult to fully understand it. I was just reading an article, and you had mentioned about how 50 pastors are supporting, publicly supporting more. And here's what I don't get is right now, the right wing and many people in the right freedom movement are very much making huge rhetorical points out of pedophilia and anti-pedophilia. And I guess I don't fully understand why they would still be supporting a candidate that has now had several pretty valid accusations made that they were trying to sleep with underage girls.
Well, Gloria Allred just kills your credibility, let's be honest.
And is she the lawyer?
Yeah, dude. So when you bring her out, it actually hurts your case. But I believe with 5 people and the way that this guy's being a smug dick, that he actually is this guy, and he doesn't belong in a leadership role at all. But that being said, dude, these guys playing each other back and forth through the media look like complete assholes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what gets me is look, during the election, there was the whole Pizzagate controversy, which I find to be some of the claims made with the whole Pizzagate crowd are very credible. I definitely see a pattern of people surrounding Hillary Clinton, including her own husband, including as you know it, Kevin Spacey, including Anthony Weiner, including the Podestas possibly, as being involved in some kind of shit very similar to this stuff, to the pedophilia stuff, and you see a big movement on the alt-right wanting to dig deeper into the whole Pizzagate thing, and that's been a very big part of the alt-right movement recently. Also, you see from the same side is a very big interest in this Hollywood sex scandal and just kind of eviscerating Hollywood, rightfully so, for its just sheer hypocrisy, where it's always sitting there trying to act like, oh yeah, women's rights and we believe in the liberation of people and stuff. And at the same time, these guys turn out to be a bunch of sexual predators that have been womanizing people and molesting children and all kinds of horrible, fucked up shit. And so you see the alt-right really going after that stuff. And then on the other hand, and I'm sure you guys remember this, just not too long ago, with Milo Yiannopoulos, who of course is some kind of folk hero of the alt-right at this point, where he was caught on tape basically talking about, oh yeah, it's okay for, young teenage boys to be, for older men to be hooking up with young teenage boys, and that's totally cool, and I approve of that. And then all of a sudden, all these same people who are like totally against Pizzagate and Podestas and all that stuff, and people who are now totally against, what's going on in Hollywood, they're like, well, maybe Milo, maybe that's not what he meant, or maybe that's okay, or like they're making excuses basically. And the same thing now with the whole Roy Moore thing. It's like, people, like, why are we letting our tribal biases get in the way of our critical thinking, and that really is like the problem here. It's like, well, pedophilia is horrible, especially like when people and when Democrats do it, but when Republicans do it, well, I don't know, maybe the people are lying when they're accusing them. It's like, no, you got to hold the same kind of standard. Yeah, maybe people could be lying, but if you're gonna say, yeah, Kevin Spacey is guilty, but Roy Moore isn't, well, you got a problem there. You got a problem because neither one of those cases have gone to trial yet, and you're believing one and you're not believing the other, and you got to understand the only thing standing in the way is your ideological bias. And that's the problem here, dude. And that's one of the bigger underlying issues, not only in the United States, but in politics everywhere. I mean, you look at many countries around the world, and it's a pretty similar setup. You got usually two major parties and then a few minor ones. And it's always this just ideological, tribalistic, biased shit back and forth. And people inadvertently, I'm starting to suspect that we organically organize in this fashion. I don't know why or for what purpose. But it definitely seems, it's not like there's some global conspiracy where every country has to have a two-party system. It's starting to seem more like, for some stupid reason, human nature makes us organize this way, and it's against our own self-interest for whatever, it's just this weird phenomenon.
It's the averages of the means, Nick, because the two people that are on the far right and the far left, they're actually repulsive. They're repulsive human beings to normal people and push us into one of the two in the center.
Can we just start a new movement? It's called "Don't be a shitty hypocrite."
Well, the problem is this, dude. We have emotions and we get emotional about shit that we can't even control, and it totally plays on our politics, and it's easy to see that. I mean, I'm starting to feel defensive now myself about shit because I'm up here in Minnesota and it's a completely different thing. It's not like California where people have lived together of all these different races forever for like 3-4 generations. People up here have been living like one generation together, dude. So there's a incessant latent racism up here everywhere and in everybody. It doesn't matter who you are, and that just comes from our natural evolution as human species. We're gonna see it, but it doesn't make a difference in California. It doesn't, dude, and probably not in Portland where you are, Jake. But the Midwest, and I know especially the South, they're different beasts, man. That's why I say we're like 4 different countries in the U.S.
Well, Portland is, unfortunately, I didn't realize the extent of this until I moved here, but Portland is insanely white. And so I don't really take seriously an ethos here of inclusivity, to be honest with you, because I don't see it in action. When I see it in action, then I'll take it seriously. But from what I see in Portland, it's a very strong anti-Californian push right now because so many people have moved here that it's created a housing crisis, and people have been priced out of their homes. So now there's this whole movement here
of trying to get to Oregon, or what?
What's that?
A bunch of people from California trying to get up to Portland.
A ton of people from California have moved to Portland. So there's this whole organic movement here of keep the Californians out, and they even stylize it like Trump's wall of keep the immigrants out. Instead of that, it's keep the Californians out. But
part of me build a wall on Portland on the Oregon border pretty soon.
Part of me suspects that there is a latent racism there. In of course the natural assumption that many people moving from California would not be white, or at least a bigger percentage of them would be non-white. So part of me thinks that there is an inherent racism tied up in that movement. The other side of me is like, okay, no, this is a very legitimate argument of low-income people being priced out of their homes. As far as the overall, racial divide that's going on right now, yeah, it's a very, raw issue. It's hard to make truth of it. But, and then we get into the whole, so many women we know have been raped, which naturally means that so many men we know are rapists. So it is, of course, a very natural assumption to make then. If 1 out of 3 women have been sexually assaulted or raped, We can look around at the men we know and make a reasonable deduction that many of them have done the raping. Now, of course, we don't know which ones, but these are conversations we have to start having now with our friends and our family.
You think that I personally think, because we talked about this on the show several times recently, that sexual assault is obviously now because it's becoming much more visible and acceptable to talk about, but sexual assault is much, much more prevalent than basically anybody wants to admit, right? And so, like you said, Jay, I mean, you bring up a great point. Is okay. Well, when you're chilling out with your friends, is it likely that maybe half the dudes in the room have done some shady ass shit, or is it the case that there's a handful of dudes doing a bunch of the assault and a bunch of the mistreatment of women? I mean,
it's both. I mean, of course, it's very possible you could be in a group of 10 people that are your friends and not a single one of them have sexually assaulted a woman. But I don't think that we should assume that across the board. I think these are conversations we have to start having with people, and it starts by eliminating the culture of objectification, even how we talk about women. And look, there is locker room talk. I don't think what Trump was doing was locker room talk, to make that clear from the start. But there is locker room talk amongst guys, and we all know it. We all do it. But we have to start drawing a line. And most guys I know, with locker room talk about women, will say some insanely vulgar, horrible things. But
women are worse. But
true, or possibly. But it's all, we all do it. That's the point. It's not just guys. There's locker room.
The problem, Jake, is that men at almost any time, unless you're a sniveling wuss, can overpower the average woman, and that's just what it's about, dude. It's about guys being pricks and knowing that there's no physical repercussion for them.
Right.
And that's why
what needs to change. Men who do things like that need to be socially ostracized so that they're not even comfortable around their friends anymore.
I feel like
that I agree with.
They seek shelter in their enclaves of men, and you do or don't agree with it? You don't think men that assault women should be socially ostracized?
And it's not even men in general. It's specific groups of men. Like, I have particular friends that I know for a fact do those things, and I've stopped associating with them over time, and that's part of the maturity process, is you stop hanging out with parasites like that. The problem is, you're right, Jake, it's probably like 10% of dudes, in all honesty, are just they're shitbirds.
I'll take this point real quick, and then a friend admitted to me when I was like 26 or 27 while we were working that he had raped someone, and I didn't call him out at the time. I didn't say anything. I don't think it's enough anymore to just stop associating with these people. I think we need to actively call them out and at the very least verbally threaten them. What they're confessing to is a horrific, terrible crime. And it's not enough anymore. We have to go further with it, unfortunately.
But the women need to do their part and go through with it, but know that the men in their lives have their back. I think that's maybe the most important thing. I know the women get scared, and they don't feel like they have anybody support them. They're going to get, threatened by guys and intimidated and never show up in court. I mean, I'm sure you've heard that of the rape kits that get processed, half the people don't show up when they're processed because they get intimidated.
Yeah, dude, exactly. And it's been systematically, the mistreatment of women, rape and stuff, it's systematically frowned upon talking about it. In fact, in some countries, it's so bad that if a woman gets raped, she's expected to marry the guy. And so we're dealing with thousands of years of this way of looking at it. I don't want to blame it on religion or anything, but I do think it has something to do with Abrahamic religions and stuff like that. But anyway, not even just those. I mean, because this stuff goes on in India as well. That being said, at least here in the U.S., I have a theory now about who may be the ones doing this kind of stuff. And I feel like it's probably the people who are bullies. I feel like the guys that are bullies who think they can physically prey upon other men probably are the same guys that are physically preying upon women, I'm guessing. Just because it seems like if you already got the the habit of doing it against other dudes. You get bigger, you become an adult, and you probably do it against women as well. And so I think that maybe we should. I would love to see not love, but I would like to see some data or a study of some sort that maybe looked into that, because it definitely seems like that's what it is, and looking at Trump,
like a consensus among men that have been convicted of rape.
Yeah,
it totally depends, because I remember researching it once, and it totally depends on their victims too. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and like with Trump, that's why I think a lot of the allegations against him make sense, because Trump does seem like, I mean, look at him on Twitter. He's a fucking schoolyard bully, grown up with billions of dollars. I mean, a guy like Trump, he's probably assaulted so many women in his past, and most of them probably will never say anything.
And look, and to that point, it's not just physical strength. There's many men who are not that much physically stronger than a woman who still coerce and manipulate women into sex, and particularly younger women. And while it may not fit the classical definition of rape, some of these, it's people that are using their position of power, or money, are threatening in some way, are able to coerce women into having sex, and you get into that gray area that makes it so legally difficult to prosecute some of these cases. But the point is, it's not just men physically overpowering women. There's a whole issue of consent right now, ironically, it's the right wing, and it's the new right that wants to make fun of these new definitions of consent, while at the same time they lend their support to someone like Roy Moore. So people need to stop being hypocrites and need to understand that the oppression of people, the degradation of people in any form whatsoever cannot be accepted, and we can't grow as a race until we start leaving these people behind and ostracizing them from society.
What's the slippery slope on consent, though? Is it now, because now I'm hearing that if you both leave drunk together, it's automatically the man's expected to...
That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's where it gets into... Yeah. I'm not sure what to say about it, but it's
just to the point where having sex is a liability at this point if you're not in a relationship, and if you're doing it at any point...
If you're worried about it, you're probably doing something fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get an HIV at the very least. Or, sorry, an STD. You probably will get HIV in California.
if you're not sure whether you assaulted someone, there's a pretty good chance you did.
Yeah.
Or Hep A. Don't forget about it. Wipe it.
That's a good indicator. Is if you feel guilty about something, you probably did something wrong. So it's a pretty good litmus test. And
I mean, it's not always the case. I feel guilty every time I have sex, no matter what. So,
look,
dude, you gotta have it with someone else.
Look,
that's a biblical thing, Nick. Guilt is tied up in the very definition of sex because of Christianity. So it's not
that's
just
the Catholic Church. Let's stop. Please stop saying Christianity is the Catholic Church. It's like saying if you're a Muslim, you're a Wahhabist, or if you're a Jew, you're a Babylonian Talmudic practitioner, dude. These are like the most extreme versions of this sex.
Well, dude, I was tripping out on this the other day. I was tripping out on the fact that, because I've gone to a fair amount of Christian church in my day. I've probably been a few dozen times. Look, it's taught in the Christian church that you're born. Literally, the act of being born is a sinful act because you're born without knowing Jesus is basically the talking points that you hear in the church. And so guilt, so you're actually born guilty of not knowing Jesus, and then you can't know Jesus until you're old enough to have consciousness to be able to say, oh yeah, I accept Jesus into my heart. I mean, this is the theory of the, the Christian, Protestant kind of Christians. It's a pretty guilt-ridden ideology, man. Like, they guilt you into stuff. I mean, I was just thinking about that.
All Abrahamic religions are, though. All of them.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that the other day. Just a random little thing.
Doesn't it just make so much sense that there is an eternal burning furnace that billions of innocent people go to?
You mean hell?
Yeah. It's just what
but I mean, if there's infinite,
what a logical concept.
Well, if there's infinite realities, and when we die, the reality of everyone else just stops, and we go into our own mind, and you're a piece of crap in life, you're going to be stuck in all your own memories. That would be a pretty nice hell, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would suck. Yeah, dude, it's pretty interesting stuff. It's just...
All you got to know is Jay-Z's quoting Lucifer and saying Jesus is fake and crap like that. You're like, dude, come on, man. If these, like, some of the weirdest people in the world are coming out against it, you're like, all right, there's something there.
I wanted to swing back to this issue of these sex assault scandals. I mean, these things are like consuming everything. Like, right? It started off with Weinstein.
That's unbelievable.
And then it starts spreading, and then now it's consuming not only Hollywood, but now it's consuming politics. I mean, dude, we are seeing the precipitation of some major unfoldings of events. I don't want to say anything apocalyptic. I don't want to say anything like World War III-ish is going to happen. All I'm saying is
we haven't seen anything yet. That's what you're saying.
All I'm saying is that, like, there's unraveling going on right now of a lot of the constructs. And, you know, DB said earlier, kind of jokingly, you know, what little faith is left in the government because it's already very untrusted. I mean, I don't know the latest approval number of Congress, but last I checked, it was around like 10%. A lot of this kind of entertainment complex stuff, which is, I would say, Hollywood, of course, the sports and the politics, which is all the kind of like the three main elements of the entertainment, that keeps us kind of not talking about the underlying like structural issues of stuff. You know, relying on politics, watching sports, and allowing Hollywood to dictate the, you know, social talking points. Those kind of things keep us kind of on a superficial kind of discussion ground where it's like, oh, are you Republican or a Democrat? Or do you support Hillary or do you support Trump? Which, of course, are two very superficial kind of talking points when it comes to political discourse. It just seems really interesting to me that a lot of these traditional structures that kept us kind of preoccupied are really getting laid bare right now. They're getting, you know, kind of dissected and broken down. I think we're on the verge of some major events that are going to change things like really rapidly. And I was talking to, when I was down in Houston, I was hanging out with the guys at the Freethinker House, and we were talking about social movements and stuff like that. And one thing I've noticed for sure, you know, the stuff we've been doing with the anti-media for like a few years now has been kind of a nice, slow progress of, you know, what we thought we're spreading ideas and getting the truth out there. And there's a bunch of people out there understanding that the two-party system was bullshit and that we have to get past all this superficial political, you know, discussions and talking points and, you know, Hollywood dictated, you know, social conversations and all that kind of stuff. I felt like we were getting past all that stuff slowly but surely over the years under the Obama presidency. And then, of course, this last election came along and reset a lot of the progress that I thought we were making, got reset, and people reverted back to their tribal state. And a lot of people became really dumb and made really bad decisions and are still making really bad decisions politically because of the tribalism, left, right, Republican, conservative, liberal, Democrat crap. I think, look, there's going to be, when you have a gradual movement, there's going to be setbacks. But all that while, spreading these ideas, seeding them out, unbiased ideas that have nothing to do with politics and stuff like that. The real fundamental ideas of freedom and agorism, economics, and self-ownership and that kind of stuff. Seeding those ideas out there. People are going to have stupid politics, whatever, fine. People are going to be, people are going to support Donald Trump. People are going to vote for Bernie, fine. Like, that shit's going to happen. But there's certain points in time where certain events precipitate a much larger event. And right now we're seeing the unraveling of the distraction side of the deep state, I guess you could say. Like, we're seeing all the stuff they use to keep us engaged in bullshit. They're all being kind of shaken up, and who knows, they could collapse. And if that happens, well, there's going to be a huge void. There's going to be a huge vacuum in the system, and who knows what's going to actually happen after that. Because, look, gradual social movements are easily co-opted, easily divided and conquered, easily set back. Spontaneous, decentralized movements are unstoppable. And that's what I've noticed throughout my activist, dealings, and, the most successful thing I've ever done, activist-wise. And to this day, this will probably be something I take to my grave, where I still say this is probably the thing I'm most proud of doing, is when we stopped that initial regime change operation in Syria back in 2013. And me and Gibson and us here on the show, I mean, DB, you remember that, dude? Like, I was giving interviews on TV, like we did something big that time. We stopped what would have been a war in Syria with probably Russia, because at the time, back in 2013, Obama and Kerry and them were talking about going and basically overthrowing Assad, which, as we know, would have been war with Russia. We helped stop that, and that is the thing I'm most proud of. And I remember when we did that, it was spontaneous and decentralized and unstoppable. When you're organizing for politics, a slow, gradual organization, it's going to get co-opted, it's going to get divided, it's going to have infighting. A lot of that's not even gonna be like, oh, the FBI infiltrated and did all this shit. A lot of that shit just happens organically. So the movements of the future, I think, have to be like this: spontaneous, autonomous, and they have to strike so fast when the iron's hot. And if we see an opportunity coming up here pretty soon, where the charade is kind of up and the curtain falls just enough, I think there could be a situation where a lot of the stuff right now that are dividing people, whether they're alt-right or Antifa or people that are on the left, people that are on the right, I think there could be an opportunity soon where all that crap becomes irrelevant and something actually big happens. And I don't say this lightly, and I don't say this very often. I mean, when was the last time you guys heard me ring an alarm like this? I don't think I ever have. But I think we're coming up to a point in time soon where something big has the chance of happening.
What do you think that is?
What do you think it is?
I don't know what it's going to be, and I don't know exactly when it'll happen. I just know it'll be something.
What do you think it is, Jake?
I feel like there's going to be a void that'll have to be filled, and it's going to be filled by something very quickly. And so I don't know what it is. It'd be wrong of me to try to speculate of it, because it's really hard to tell. I mean, I don't know.
We're talking about big. I would say one possibility is, as DB has been researching and talking about, I think a revelation of a pedo rink in Washington could be pretty huge. And I think on both sides of the aisle, that would cause a dissolution of the government. If you want to get really speculative, I think a kind of AI movement in politics could disrupt the paradigm. A leak showing, some of the bigger leaks showing deep state collusion, not just pay for play, but even evidence of like inside jobs and stuff like that. False flags could be a huge thing. It would to dismantle the power structure that's currently there. I mean, look at what's happened. We had, Trump as president, and he's actively declaring war against mainstream media and the deep state, and we still really haven't seen a full dismantling of the power structures there. So you're talking about something that would have to be seismically huge to cause something like that, and it would get worse before it got better. But yeah, I agree with you. I do feel like a new paradigm is eventually going to take root with decentralization and stuff like that, and with people having the ability to look up stuff on their own, communicate on their own, run their own news station. We may be at the tail end of like an old order of human communication when people are able to, upload an avatar of themselves to a virtual reality environment. There's all kinds of new trends that are going to seismically change society, and by proxy, politics and commerce and business and everything that goes along with it. So who knows? Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think something as big is on the horizon, and I hope it's something that is actually good for humanity, unlike a 9/11 or something like that.
Yeah, man, I agree with you, dude. I mean, look, I look at the state of politics, dude, and there's plenty to be upset about. I mean, it's this fucking guy, Roy Moore, hooking up with 14-year-olds, sexually assaulting 16-year-old girls, and you got him still having a really good chance of winning. SM Gibson told me, you know what, dude, like, this fool's probably still going to win. Like, he's probably still going to win that seat.
He's ahead in the polls, but he'll probably, if more revelations come out, they can eject him from the Senate. It's been done before.
If he's ejected, that's one thing. Will he win the election? From what my people tell me, he probably will still win the election. I mean, this is how crappy the politics are at this point. So, I mean, there's plenty to be disappointed about. I mean, I think Trump is a mixed bag, because I see Trump as like, he's a buffoon and he's ridiculous, but at the same time, it's kind of refreshing in a way, because it's like, okay, well, at least it's not a veneer of it's not a facade where it's like Obama, where it's like, oh, we're so sophisticated and we're so intelligent and we're so clean and we're so just cool. Whereas with Trump, it's like, okay, yeah, like this is actually a little more honest. Like, we're a brash, arrogant, militaristic country. Trump is a more honest reflection of it, I think, than Obama. And I think Trump is, if we're going to have a quote-unquote healing process, and I hate to sound cliche with that, but if we're going to have a healing process, I think Trump is part of it. Like, we have to get that out of the way, where it's like, okay, like, holy shit, like, I think people like to forget that a lot of people in this country think like Trump. Like, they identify with what he's doing. And the way he is doing things, people identify with that. And I think a lot of people in this country have been duped into thinking that we were some kind of do-good, sophisticated country spreading wellness and health and democracy around the world. Like, people actually genuinely believe that shit under Obama.
I think
Trump,
people,
it's like, okay, yeah, okay.
Party was going to go forever. I think people think that we're going to be able to just print money out of thin air and bomb countries around the world and feel good about it. And all of the Democrats that supported Obama the second term, when he was still bombing everyone around the world, what in the hell were you thinking, dude? It's all going to come home to roost. It's like China and Russia are so strong now together that they checkmated us. So I don't know what Trump is doing. I honestly don't. I know if Hillary was in right now, we'd be at war, because they'd be trying to save the empire. So if we can avoid a major, massive war, then it's going to be better this way. If we have a major, massive war, it's going to be the same.
We need more options. I mean, look.
Well, we know what the other option is. The option is the nuclear option, which is take back our country.
Voting, provided we're going to continue voting and continue even putting up the veneer of a representative democracy, as haphazard as that is, we can't just be forced to vote between the lesser of two evils each time. I don't want to keep voting between Obama and Romney and Clinton and Trump. We need an accurate representation of how people feel. And when we get that with third parties, so let's run Bernie as an independent, let's run Clinton as a Democrat, Trump as a Republican, and Ron Paul as a Libertarian, and let's get an accurate representation of how you feel. Design it so that you get the one with the most votes, and then pick the second most, and have those two run off. So we at least get some. We got to have some kind of better way of representing the American will, so that we don't get someone like Trump representing us. Because this is, I mean, while I think on an id level, on a deep psychological issue, I agree that he probably is a better representation of who we are, but it's not who we want to be.
Exactly.
Well, I guess, I think we're gonna just argue about it forever. That we're too different in different parts of the country. We're too different.
Yeah, I agree with you.
We really are, dude. Like I will never, ever, ever live in the South or on the East Coast ever, because I've been there enough times to know that doesn't jive with the way I think. So I don't know, man. I've been all over this country, and it's so different.
DB, got a question for you, dude. Would you consider moving to? Did you guys hear about the Free Society yet? It's a new country that's going to be purchased off of an existing country, and it's being set up by this Bitcoin dude, Roger Ver, and it's going to be the first country that is a non-country. Basically, it's not going to have government. It's going to have zero taxes. Everything's going to be based on like private property and all that kind of stuff. I mean, DB, would you give it a shot to move somewhere outside of the U.S., or are you more on the stay and fight kind of reform, where we're at right now, or are you more on the I'd give it a shot. Let's try getting the hell out of here. What do you think?
Is Jim Jones running that?
No, it's not. It's not a cult. It's going to be an actual country with a huge piece of land that's completely sovereign, but it's not going to have.
But how do they defend it?
Well, it'll be defended by probably private means, which would be militias and probably mercs. But
God, dude,
I'm sure that won't be compromised immediately.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'd be perfect or anything, but I mean, what do you think, DB?
Well, I mean, I don't know, dude. You have to think if we're going to go along the current course, or if things are going to get better or worse. If we're going along the current course, meaning the status quo, worldwide, not just here. I think here we're going to obviously undergo a massive shift soon because of the election. But worldwide, things are still kind of humming along at their globalizing pace. And what that really means to me is we're going to not be able to create energy, and we're going to have more people than we know what to do with soon. And I don't know in that timeline how any country that's not militarily dominant can even survive, let alone thrive. So that's the biggest problem. I mean, there's a ton of people, and if we're going to stay on this gas oil paradigm, we're going to run out of it. They're going to blame it on us. They're going to make a carbon tax. Then everybody's going to be taking the bus, living in a crappy small apartment. I mean, that's not what we want.
The three of us should go try and live there and make a documentary about it, man.
Yeah, we should at least do that. But, in this new country, there won't be taxes, but also there won't be subsidies either. So it'll be up to, I think this new country will probably be supplied with power by solar panels, I'm guessing, mostly. Then again, maybe it'll be nuclear. I don't know. But I think it's an interesting topic, with the state of the U.S. and all the non-conversations going on. Like, I just feel like, on one hand, we're so far away from talking about any kind of solutions, but on the other hand, we're also so close to having some kind of monumental shift, which is in itself a little bit scary, because it's like, what if there's a massive shift and the void is filled with idiots? Take it over to back Wednesday.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.